The great arena of the Galactic Accord floated in open space like a silver crown. It was larger than any city on Earth, wide enough to hold mountains, oceans, and skies created by advanced technology. Millions of beings from thousands of worlds watched from crystal seats and floating platforms. This was the place where species were judged, where futures were decided, and where reputations were broken forever. On this day, humanity stood alone. At the center of the arena stood a single human man. His name was Elias Rowe. He wore a simple dark uniform with no armor, no visible weapons, and no symbols of rank. He was average in height, lean rather than muscular, with tired eyes that had seen too many stars and too much loss. To the watching aliens he looked weak, fragile, temporary. High above him, on a throne shaped from living crystal, sat Princess Valith of the Karzan Dominion. She was tall, graceful, and radiant, her skin glowing faintly with bioluminescent patterns that marked her royal bloodline. Her species had ruled entire sectors for thousands of years. They were stronger, faster, and lived 10 times longer than humans. Valith leaned forward, her lips curling into a confident smile. "You won't last a minute, human," she said, her voice carried across the arena by unseen systems. "Your kind survives only because stronger species allow it." Soft laughter rippled through the crowd. Many had already seen the data. Humans came from a dangerous world, yes, but they were physically unimpressive by galactic standards. Short lives, weak bodies, emotional minds. Elias did not respond. He simply looked around the arena, taking in the size, the distance, the exits, and the way the ground beneath his boots subtly shifted. He listened more than he spoke. That alone confused a few observers. The High Arbiter, a floating being of light and metal, began the proceedings. It announced that humanity was accused of being unstable and unfit for unrestricted expansion. The trial would not be decided by debate. It would be decided by endurance. Princess Valith raised one elegant hand. "Let us not waste time," she said. "Begin the first challenge." The arena floor changed instantly. The smooth surface dissolved into rough stone, cracked and uneven. The air thickened. Gravity increased. Elias felt it at once. His knees bent slightly as his body adjusted. The gravity was nearly 3 times that of Earth. For many species, this alone would be fatal. Sensors embedded in the arena lit up, projecting data into the air. Numbers appeared beside the human figure, flashing warnings. Heart rate elevated, oxygen intake strained, muscular microtears detected. Valith watched with open amusement. "Already struggling," she said softly. Elias took a slow breath through his nose and let it out through his mouth. He widened his stance, adjusted his posture, and began to move forward. Each step was heavy but steady. The ground ahead shifted again. Heat rose from below. The stone glowed red, then orange. Volcanic vents opened, releasing waves of burning air. The temperature climbed far beyond what most species could tolerate. Protective shields flickered on around many spectators to shield them from the heat. Elias removed his outer jacket and tied it around his waist. Sweat poured down his face. His skin burned, but he kept walking. "This is pointless," Valith said, her tone bored. "End it quickly." But the High Arbiter did not stop the trial. The systems were responding to something unexpected. The human was not collapsing. He was slowing, yes, but he was adapting. The terrain shifted again. The heat vanished, replaced by cold so sharp it felt like knives. Ice formed instantly on the ground. A freezing wind tore across the arena, strong enough to knock over armored beasts from other worlds. Elias stumbled once. His hands scraped against ice. Blood appeared dark against the white surface. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Still he stood. He wrapped his arms around his chest, lowered his center of gravity, and angled his body into the wind. His teeth chattered, but his eyes remained focused. Princess Valith's smile faded just a little. "Why is he still moving?" she asked one of her advisors. The human body is inefficient, the advisor replied carefully, but it compensates with a persistence. The systems introduce the next layer. A low-frequency psychic pressure rolled across the arena, invisible but crushing. It was designed to overwhelm emotional minds, forcing fear, doubt, and despair to the surface. Images flashed in Elia's mind: burning cities, broken ships drifting in space. Faces of people he could not save. His steps slowed. His breathing grew uneven. The crowd leaned forward. This was where most species broke. Elia stopped walking. Princess Valeth straightened. "There," she said, "it ends." But the human did not fall. He closed his eyes. Inside his mind, he did not fight the memories. He accepted them. He had lived with them for years. Loss was not new to him. Fear was not unfamiliar. When he opened his eyes again, something had changed. He took another step. The psychic pressure spiked, reacting to resistance. Warnings flooded the system displays, neural stress exceeding safe limits. Elias laughed softly. It was not a happy sound. It was tired, rough, and human. "You're going to have to try harder than that," he muttered, though no one could hear him directly. Princess Valeth's fingers tightened around the arm of her throne. The arena shifted once more. Jagged stone pillars rose from the ground. Visibility dropped as thick fog filled the space. Movement sensors activated, tracking the human's position. This was no longer a test of environment alone. It was a hunt. Mechanical predators emerged from the fog, sleek, fast, and armed with non-lethal but incapacitating force. They were designed to overwhelm targets through speed and coordination. Elias heard them before he saw them. The sound of metal against stone, the hum of power cores. He did not run. He moved toward higher ground, forcing his tired legs to climb. He slowed his breathing, focusing on control rather than speed. One of the predators lunged. Elias rolled aside at the last moment. Pain shot through his shoulder as he hit the ground, but he grabbed a loose stone and threw it with everything he had. It struck a sensor node on the machine's head. The predator froze, then collapsed. The crowd erupted into shocked noise. "That was luck," Valeth snapped. But then Elias did it again and again. He did not fight the machines directly. He led them. He used the terrain. He waited for mistakes. Every movement was careful, deliberate, learned in real time. Minutes passed. The system had predicted 30 seconds. Warnings now filled the air in bright red symbols. Trial parameters exceeded. Probability models failing. Princess Valeth rose to her feet. "This is impossible," she said. "He should be broken." The High Arbiter responded, its voice calm and neutral. "The human is still functioning within biological limits." "Then increase the difficulty," Valeth ordered. The gravity spiked again. Elias dropped to one knee. His vision blurred. Blood ran from his nose. His muscles screamed in protest. For a moment it looked like he might finally fall. Then he planted his hand on the ground and pushed himself back up. The arena fell into near silence. No cheers, no laughter, just watching. Elias stood in the center of chaos, shaking, exhausted, injured, but alive. Princess Valeth stared at him, no longer smiling. The first challenge timer stopped. The human had lasted far more than a minute, and the trial had only just begun. The arena systems reset slowly, as if unsure how to respond to what had just happened. Gravity eased back to a level that would not crush bone. The wind died down. The fog thinned and vanished. Broken machines lay scattered across the ground like fallen animals. Elias Rose stood where he was, breathing hard. Every breath burned. His muscles shook from exhaustion, and pain throbbed through his body in steady waves. He did not raise his head or look at the crowd. He focused on staying upright. Above him, the audience was no longer laughing. Princess Valeth remained standing. Her glowing eyes followed every small movement the human made. What she felt was not fear, but something close to irritation mixed with confusion. The numbers did not make sense. The models did not make sense. The human should have collapsed long ago. "Explain," she said quietly to her advisors. One of them, a tall being covered in metallic scales, hesitated. "Princess, the human nervous system appears to ignore several standard failure signals. Pain does not stop them the way it stops others." Valith's jaw tightened. "Pain exists to warn the body." "Yes," the advisor replied. "Humans seem to treat it as information." The High Arbiter's voice echoed through the arena. The first phase had concluded. The second phase would begin after a brief interval. Medical assistance was offered as required by Accord law. A hovering platform moved toward Elias, carrying advanced healing equipment. Elias waved it away. The motion was small, slow, but clear. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "He refuses aid," someone whispered. The arbiter paused. "Human representative medical stabilization is advised." Elias lifted his head at last. His face was pale, streaked with sweat and blood, but his eyes were steady. "If I take help," he said, voice rough but calm, "then this isn't about what we are anymore. It's about your machines." Silence followed. The arbiter considered this. "Your choice will be recorded." The platform withdrew. Princess Valith stared at the human, her glowing patterns pulsing faintly. "Stubborn to the point of self-destruction," she said. "That is not strength." Elias said nothing. He simply shifted his weight and prepared himself. The arena changed again. The ground smoothed into a dark metallic surface. Tall structures rose in the distance, forming a maze of narrow paths and sharp turns. The light dimmed, replaced by a low red glow that cast long shadows. The air felt heavy, not with gravity this time, but with pressure. Not physical pressure, something deeper. This phase was not about the body alone. Invisible waves rolled through the maze, targeting the mind. Fear responses were amplified. Doubt was sharpened. Regret was pulled to the surface and forced to repeat. Species across the galaxy feared this test. Many strong warriors had broken here without a single wound on their bodies. Elias took one step into the maze. The moment he crossed the boundary, the world around him shifted. He was no longer in the arena. He stood on the bridge of a human ship, alarms blaring, lights flashing red. Smoke filled the air. He could hear shouting, feel the deck shaking beneath his feet. A memory. His hands clenched into fists. He knew this place. He had lived this moment, the illusion sharpened, becoming painfully real. He saw crew members running past him. He heard his own voice giving orders that came too late. The ship shook violently. "Commander!" someone shouted. "The core is failing." Elias closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, he was still in the maze. The illusion flickered, confused. He took another step forward. The systems reacted by pushing harder. Now he stood in a quiet room, a hospital room. A woman lay on the bed, pale and still. Machines beeped softly beside her. He felt the familiar weight in his chest. "You promised," the illusion said in her voice. His breath caught. The crowd watched in silence as the human slowed. His shoulders sagged. His steps became uneven. Princess Valith leaned forward again. "There it is," she said softly. "This is where he breaks." But Elias did not scream. He did not fall. He reached out and placed his hand on the edge of the illusionary bed. His fingers passed through it like smoke. "I know," he said quietly. "I couldn't save you." The illusion wavered. "But I'm still here," he continued. "And that means I keep going." The hospital room shattered like glass. Elias stumbled, nearly falling, but caught himself against a wall of the maze. He rested there for a moment, breathing slowly, grounding himself in the feel of solid metal beneath his palm. The systems increased output again. Fear flooded his senses. A deep animal fear designed to trigger flight or collapse. His heart pounded. His vision narrowed. His body begged him to stop. Instead, he laughed under his breath. It was not loud, it was not brave, it was simply real. "Same tricks," he whispered. He pushed off the wall and moved deeper into the maze. The watchers began to murmur. "He is not resisting," one observer noted. "He is accepting." Princess Valith's expression hardened. "Acceptance is surrender." No, another voice replied, uncertain. It is adaptation. The maze grew more complex. Pathways shifted behind Elias, cutting off retreat. The red light pulsed in time with his heartbeat. New illusions struck without warning. He was alone on a dead world, surrounded by the bones of his species. He was standing before the Galactic Council, watching them vote for humanity's extinction. He was back on Earth, watching storms swallow cities whole. Each vision hit harder than the last. Each one slowed him more. Blood ran freely from his nose now. His hands shook. His knees buckled, and he fell to one knee on the cold metal floor. The crowd held its breath. Elias stayed there for a long moment, head bowed. Princess Valith exhaled. Finally. Then Elias placed his hand on the ground and pushed himself up again. Not quickly, not smoothly, but completely. The psychic pressure spiked to dangerous levels. Warning symbols filled the air above the maze. The systems were pushing beyond recommended limits. The subject should be unconscious, an engineer said, panic creeping into their voice. Princess Valith did not answer. Elias resumed walking. His steps were slow now, dragging, but they did not stop. He leaned against walls when needed. He rested for seconds at a time, then moved again. The maze responded by releasing something new. Shapes formed ahead of him, humanoid silhouettes made of shadow and light. They moved like people. They spoke in voices he recognized. "You're tired," they said. "You've done enough. Let someone else carry this." Elias stopped. For a moment it looked as if he might listen. Then he straightened slightly and met their gaze. "No one else can," he said. He walked through them. The figures dissolved, unable to maintain form. The maze walls began to lower. At the far end, a clear path appeared. The exit. Elias stepped out of the maze and back into the open arena. The psychic pressure lifted suddenly. The relief was so strong it almost knocked him down. He staggered, then steadied himself. The second phase timer stopped. The audience erupted, not in cheers, but in shocked, uncontrolled noise. Species that had never questioned their superiority now watched the human with something close to respect. Princess Valith remained silent. Elias stood in the center of the arena once more, barely standing, every breath a battle. He did not raise his arms. He did not look proud. He simply stayed on his feet. The High Arbiter spoke again. "Phase 2 is complete." Princess Valith slowly sat back down. Her confidence had cracked. The human had not conquered the trial. He had endured it, and the most dangerous test was still ahead. The third phase began with a sound like thunder rolling across the arena. The floor trembled beneath Elias' boots, and the air vibrated with energy so strong it made his teeth hum. He did not flinch. He did not step back. He had endured the environment. He had endured illusions. Now it was time for something else. From the center of the arena, a portal opened. Light and heat radiated from it, and a figure stepped forward. Taller than any human, built like a living mountain, muscles rippling under pale, smooth skin. Its eyes glowed a cold blue. This was the champion of the Karzan Dominion, a genetically enhanced warrior bred for combat and survival. It was fast, clever, and nearly invincible. Princess Valith rose, her glowing patterns pulsing with excitement. "This is your final challenge, human," she said, her voice sharp. "Defeat him or fail. That is the law of the Accord." Elias did not respond. He studied the champion carefully, noting every twitch of muscle, every flicker of movement, every hint of pattern. He knew he was slower. He knew he was weaker, but he also knew he could think faster than this creature. That was his advantage. The champion charged first. It moved so quickly that the ground seemed to blur beneath its feet. Elias dodged instinctively, rolling to one side. A strike passed where he had been standing, smashing a section of the arena floor. Shrapnel flew around him. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he ignored it. Every move was precise. Every movement calculated. The crowd gasped. No human had ever faced the champion before, and certainly none had survived more than a few strikes. Yet here Elias was, still on his feet, still moving. The champion adjusted, attacking from angles Elias had not seen before. Elias stumbled once, barely keeping balance, but he adapted. He did not try to overpower. He observed, waited, and moved where the champion could not predict. Princess Valith leaned forward. Her amusement was gone. "You are skilled, human, but skill alone will not save you." The champion struck again. Elias rolled under the blow, feeling the wind of the strike brush against his back. He sprang to his feet and threw a small piece of debris with all his strength. It hit the champion's shoulder, not enough to stop it, but enough to make it hesitate. Elias used that hesitation. He ducked low, shifted to the left, and delivered a swift kick to the champion's leg. The alien stumbled. That tiny advantage was all he needed. He backed up, forced the champion to chase, and led it into a narrow corridor formed by the arena walls. Its size made movement harder. Every step it took gave Elias information. Every attack it made showed its weakness. The crowd watched in disbelief. The human's movements were not about strength. They were about survival, strategy, and learning. Every failure became a lesson. Every hit he received became a guide. Princess Valith's hands clenched. "This cannot be. The systems predict his defeat." "They underestimated him," an advisor whispered. "Humans, they are unpredictable." Elias' breath came in sharp, controlled bursts. His chest ached. His arms shook. His legs burned. Yet he did not stop. Pain was a signal, not a command. Fear was a signal, not a command. Fatigue was a signal, not a command. He darted to the side, narrowly avoiding a sweeping arm that could have crushed a normal human. He rolled forward, grabbed another piece of debris, and threw it, hitting the champion's knee. It staggered. He saw the opening and jumped onto its back, using its momentum to flip them both to the ground. The champion roared in frustration. Elias was now on top of it, but he did not strike with power. He used leverage, using his weight to push the champion off balance. Every motion was about controlling the situation, not hurting the opponent. Minutes passed like hours. Sweat, blood, and dust coated the arena floor. The champion's movements grew slower, more hesitant. Elias' breathing was harsh, each inhalation burning his lungs. His body screamed at him to give up, but his mind refused. The crowd began to murmur. Shock turned into awe. No species had ever used intelligence to outlast strength so clearly. The numbers in the system displays spun wildly. Predictions failed. Alerts flashed red. Princess Valith's pulse quickened. "Stop him," she demanded. "End it now." But the system could not. It could only watch as the human adapted, survived, and pressed on. The champion tried one final strike, a devastating blow aimed at Elias' head. Elias ducked at the last second, feeling a sharp pain graze his scalp. He rolled under the champion and scrambled to his feet behind it. The creature turned, slowing as it noticed its disadvantage. Elias did not hesitate. He moved in a controlled rush, keeping just out of reach, striking at joints, creating imbalance and forcing the champion into defensive reactions. He had no illusions of victory by strength, but victory by endurance and cunning was now within reach. The champion lunged again. Elias sidestepped and used the momentum to sweep its legs. The creature fell heavily onto the arena floor. Elias leapt back, exhausted, panting, but he did not fall. The arena went silent. For the first time, the thousands of spectators stopped their chatter. Even distant systems ceased broadcasting noise. The human remained standing while the champion lay prone. Princess Valith's eyes widened. She had expected this outcome in thousands of years to be impossible, yet here it was. A human had survived and even overcome the pinnacle of her species' power. Elias did not raise his arms. He did not scream in triumph. He barely had the strength to move. He was battered, bleeding, and trembling from every wound. But he was alive and he was still standing. The High Arbiter's voice rang out, calm and authoritative. "Phase 3 complete. Humanity has passed the endurance and combat trials." The audience erupted in shocked awe. Aliens from countless species whispered, some rising to their feet. No one had ever witnessed a display like this. Princess Valith stood frozen. Her face glowed faintly, but it was not pride. It was disbelief, mixed with respect she had never thought she could feel for a human. "How?" she whispered. Elias stumbled forward, barely holding himself upright. His arms trembled, his chest heaved. He took one unsteady step toward her throne. "I did what I had to do," he said, voice rough and weak. "Humans survive, we endure, we adapt. That is who we are." The princess stared at him. She had never met anyone like this. In her world, strength was measured by power, by speed, by technology. Yet here was a human, without enhancements, without armor, without weapons, defeating every obstacle with sheer will and cleverness. Her advisors whispered among themselves. "This is unprecedented," one said. "They predicted his death countless times." Valith's patterns flickered as she struggled to understand. Persistence, adaptability, cleverness, endurance. He has survived where others fail. Elias' body shook with pain, but he forced himself to take a step closer. His voice grew quieter, but every word was steady. "You thought I would fail because I am human. You thought I am weak, but we are not weak. We endure, and you underestimated us." The champion stirred behind him but did not rise. It had been designed to fight endlessly, yet it had failed to match the human's will. Princess Valith's jaw tightened. For the first time, she felt the weight of underestimating a species she had dismissed for centuries. The High Arbiter spoke again. "Final phase will begin shortly. Human endurance and adaptability have surpassed expectations. The next test will determine judgment of character and diplomacy." Elias did not respond. He simply took a moment to breathe and steady himself. He had survived the first 3 phases. His body was battered, but his spirit was intact. His mind was alert. His focus was clear. The crowd watched in silence. They were beginning to understand something fundamental about humanity. It was not raw strength. It was not speed or power. It was persistence, intelligence, and the refusal to give up, no matter the odds. Even Princess Valith, the heir to the most powerful empire in this part of the galaxy, could not deny it. She had been arrogant, confident, and dismissive. And she had been proven wrong. Elias stood in the center of the arena, shaking, battered, and bleeding. Yet he remained upright. He had survived. He had adapted. He had endured. The message was clear. Humans were dangerous, not because of brute strength, but because of heart, mind, and willpower. And the most difficult challenge had not even begun. The 4th and final phase would decide the fate of humanity in the galaxy. But whatever came next, Elias Rowe had already shown the universe one undeniable truth. A human could endure anything. The arena fell silent as the systems reconfigured for the final phase. The first 3 trials had tested endurance, adaptation, and combat ability. Elias Rowe had survived each one. He had pushed his body beyond its limits, faced illusions that preyed on his mind, and defeated the most formidable champion of the Karzan Dominion. Yet this final trial would be different. This was not about survival, strength, or skill. It was about choice, morality, and the will to lead a species forward. Princess Valith sat on her throne, her glowing patterns pulsing slowly. She had watched with disbelief as the human had defied every expectation. Her advisors whispered nervously. "This is unprecedented," one said. "No species has ever reached this point without breaking completely." Valith's eyes narrowed. "Then let us see if his will can match his endurance. Bring forth the challenge." The arena transformed. The floor dissolved into a reflective surface, smooth and dark as obsidian. Rising from the center was a sphere of light, pulsating and shifting, containing swirling images of countless worlds, stars, and civilizations. Elias understood immediately. This was a simulation of the galaxy, a representation of the potential and consequences of humanity's actions. The High Arbiter's voice echoed throughout the arena. Human representative, the final phase is the trial of judgment. Your species has survived all physical and mental tests. Now, you must demonstrate your wisdom, your foresight, and your ability to act for the good of many. The choices you make here will influence the Accord's decision regarding humanity's place in the galaxy. Elias stepped forward, every movement careful but deliberate. His body ached, his muscles burned, blood and sweat stained his uniform, yet his eyes were steady, clear, and determined. He looked at the sphere, at the swirling images of countless civilizations, and understood what was required. Images shifted. Some worlds were peaceful, teeming with life, technology, and art. Others were violent, devastated by war, disease, or neglect. He saw species that had risen and fallen, their mistakes repeated across centuries. The sphere pulsed, demanding a choice. A voice spoke within his mind, not threatening but insistent. Human, you may influence the galaxy. Decide which worlds will thrive and which will fail. Choose wisely or all may suffer. Elias did not hesitate. He had faced impossible odds before. He had endured pain, fear, and loss. Now he would face a challenge of conscience. He began moving through the sphere, touching each world with deliberate care. He did not act as a conqueror. He did not act as a judge with arrogance. Instead, he analyzed each civilization, considered their potential, their flaws, their capacity to grow, and the lessons they might learn. When he saw a world devastated by war, he did not destroy it. He introduced visions of cooperation, ideas for unity, and ways for its people to rebuild. When he encountered a species on the brink of extinction, he provided glimpses of hope, strategies for survival, and guidance without taking control. Time seemed to stretch. The sphere reacted to his choices. Colors shifted. Worlds brightened or darkened based on the decisions he made. Each action was a test, and the system measured not just outcomes but intent, judgment, and compassion. The audience watched in awe. For the first time, many began to understand humanity in a way that no physical contest could reveal. It was not strength that defined Elias. It was vision, wisdom, the willingness to endure not just for oneself but for others. Princess Valith remained silent, her eyes following every move. She had never considered that humans might possess such insight. Her empire had ruled through strength, strategy, and dominance. But this human operated on a different level entirely, one that could influence the fate of countless worlds without striking a blow. Hours seemed to pass, though time in the arena was fluid. Elias continued to move through the simulation, never faltering. His body screamed in protest, but his mind remained sharp. Every choice was deliberate, every decision weighed, every outcome considered. Finally, he reached the center of the sphere. Here, a single world remained. Its surface was chaotic, torn between destruction and rebirth. Elias paused. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. A wrong decision could doom an entire civilization. He closed his eyes. He remembered Earth. He remembered the struggles, the failures, the resilience, and the moments of extraordinary courage. He thought of humanity, small and fragile, yet capable of endurance beyond imagination. He realized the truth the trial sought to measure, not the power to control, but the wisdom to guide, the strength to endure, and the courage to act without cruelty. When he opened his eyes, he reached out and touched the world gently. He did not impose. He did not dominate. He provided insight, guidance, and opportunity, allowing the species to choose their path while offering tools to survive and thrive. The sphere pulsed once, then erupted into brilliant light. Colors exploded, filling the arena. Worlds shone brightly, each civilization safe, each species given a chance to grow. The systems recorded Elias' choices, analyzing not just outcomes but the intent behind them. The High Arbiter spoke, its voice resonating through the arena with finality. The human representative has completed the trial of judgment. His choices demonstrate wisdom, foresight, and compassion beyond what has ever been recorded for a non-advanced species. Humanity's place in the galaxy shall be elevated and protected. The crowd erupted into applause, cheers, and stunned silence. Aliens from countless species whispered among themselves, some standing in respect, others unable to comprehend what they had witnessed. Princess Valith remained seated, her glowing patterns dim and flickering. She had expected weakness, failure, and arrogance. Instead, she had seen endurance, intelligence, and wisdom. For the first time, she felt something she had never known before: respect for a human. Elias, battered and bleeding, barely able to stand, took a step forward toward the princess. His voice, though weak, carried across the arena. "You underestimated humans," he said. "We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest, but we endure, we adapt, we survive. And when we act with thought and purpose, not only for ourselves but for others." Valith studied him closely. She had faced countless champions, seen the rise and fall of entire species, and understood power in all its forms. Yet this human had survived challenges that would have destroyed others. He had triumphed not through power but through heart, mind, and will. "You have proven something extraordinary," she said softly, almost to herself. "Humans are remarkable." Elias nodded slightly, his body trembling. Pain radiated through him, but he held himself upright. "We are capable of more than you thought," he said. "Never underestimate us again." The High Arbiter's voice rang once more. "Humanity shall be granted protected status within the Accord. Their achievements, endurance, and wisdom shall be recognized and respected. The galaxy has learned a lesson today. Never underestimate a species that refuses to give up, even against impossible odds." The arena erupted. Aliens cheered. Some knelt in respect. Others simply stared, unable to comprehend the display of human endurance and judgment. Princess Valith remained silent, her thoughts turning inward. She realized the truth of her earlier boast, now turned upside down. Elias had lasted far more than a minute. He had lasted against impossible odds, against illusions, against pain and fear. And he had triumphed not through dominance, but through human qualities the galaxy had never fully understood: persistence, courage, intelligence, and compassion. Elias stood in the center of the arena, battered, exhausted, but alive. The trials had tested his body, his mind, and his spirit, and he had endured. Humanity had endured. The princess finally spoke, her voice steady. "You have shown us what humans truly are. We will remember this day." Elias nodded slightly. "You should, because humans survive. We endure, and we rise where others fall." The crowd continued to cheer. The systems recorded every detail. The galaxy had witnessed something it would never forget: a human standing tall against impossible odds, defining what it meant to endure, adapt, and lead with wisdom. As Elias turned to leave the arena, the weight of exhaustion threatening to drop him to his knees, he allowed himself a brief, tired smile. The trials were over. Humanity's place in the galaxy was secure. And for the first time in many years, he felt hope, not just for himself, but for his species, small and fragile, yet capable of endurance that even the greatest powers could not ignore. The light of the arena dimmed as the systems retracted. The crowds began to disperse, carrying stories of the human who had defied all expectations. Princess Valith watched silently, the lesson etched into her mind: never underestimate the heart, mind, and will of a human. And somewhere deep within Elias, beneath the exhaustion and the pain, he felt a quiet certainty. Humanity would endure. Humanity would rise. And the galaxy would never forget the day a single human taught them all the true meaning of strength. The trials were over, but the story of human endurance had just begun. "You won't last a minute, human," the alien princess boasted, unaware of who she faced. HFY Stories.